Hi, I want to talk right now about Matthew Arnold. I know we only have one poem by Matthew Arnold on our syllabus, but I do want to point out Matthew Arnold is considered one of the great Victorian era poets, right? And like his fellow Englishmen, Alfred Lord Tennyson and Robert Browning, he kind of represents, I think, what one might call a fairly conservative approach to the writing of poetry. And again, very much like the other Victorians, right? He's interested in big picture issues, right? He is somewhat conservative in techniques, right? In other words, there's more emphasis on formalism, whether it's in terms of rhymes or just kind of the general approach to the use of language, right? In other words, not the experimentation that we see both before and after the Victorian era. Now, with Arnold, we have a particular piece called Dover Beach. Now, if you're not familiar with Dover Beach, which is a real place and you should know it, it's along the coast of England. It is basically the point of England that is closest to France across the channel, right? Historically, it is where the invasions would be either launched or received, right, as French and English went back and forth across the channel because it was, the closest point. It was the quickest way to get across. Dover Beach is particularly remarkable because of what we call the White Cliffs of Dover, because they are white and they are cliffs. Okay, those of you who know the Shakespeare play King Lear may remember that the Duke of Gloucester asked to be taken to the edge of the cliffs of Dover, where he intends to jump off and commit suicide. He is saved by his own son. Duke, at that point, of course, is already blinded. Spoiler alert if you don't know Lear. He's already been blinded, and so he, meaning the son, Edgar tricks him into thinking he's jumped off a cliff when he really hasn't. Be that as it may. Okay. The point is that it's like a wall, right? The cliffs of Dover, symbolically, visually, and in practical terms as well, were effectively a wall, right? Just you keep out kind of thing, right? Now, in Dover Beach itself, right, Matthew Arnold takes on a kind of persona, right? Now, again, don't be confused. This is not romanticism, okay? We're not getting a confessional here. All right. The sea is calm tonight, the tide is full, the moon lies fair upon the straits. Okay, so you're out there, you're looking out, you got your little hotel room or whatever, you're looking over there. On the French coast, the light gleams and is gone. Now, this gleaming light really refers to the French Revolution of 1849. Not the earlier French Revolution, the one that so inspired the Romantic poets. This is the Revolution of Les Miserables, right? If you're familiar with the play, the musical. Right, 1849 is sometimes called the year of revolution. But like many revolutions, there's this great promise, but it ultimately fails. So as he says, on the French coast, the light gleams and is gone. So there's this moment of promise, this moment of hope, but it didn't last, right? As often happens, right? The cliffs of England stand. Okay, so again, as I said, if you imagine the White Cliffs of Dover as like a wall, right? The English are very good at keeping out the ideas of the continent of Europe, right? In other words, those radical liberal ideas, they push away both literally with the cliffs, but also metaphorically, right? That these ideas don't come in. But notice that the ideas are presented as light, gleams, right? There's this promise here, which is not delivered. And England stands. It does not change, right? It keeps to its hierarchical system of culture and society and law and royalty. Glimmering and vast out in the tranquil bay, come to the window, sweet as the night air. So you can imagine, right, the speaker beckoning to his loved one, right, to come to the window and experience this beautiful night air. But notice how the next word, next line, line 7, begins with the word only. And then there's a comma. Now, when you see something like this, this should draw your attention. There's this pause there after the word only. Only. It's like saying some big thing and saying, but, right? Arnold says only, forcing the reader to consider there's more to come, and it's not maybe in the same vein. Maybe a little bit, kind of, I don't know. From the long line of spray where the sea meets the moon-blanched land, listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling. At their return, up the high strand, begin and cease, and then again begin, with tremulous cadence slow. Kind of like the waves, right? We're here in San Diego. We're familiar with the ocean, right? The waves. But notice the emotion that he connects to the sound of the waves, right? The moon-blanched land, right? Blanching, kind of like boiling something or cooking something to a point where it makes it kind of white, right? And then that last line, which is line 14, the eternal note of sadness in. So bring the eternal note of sadness in. So this wave, right, this sound of the waves and this withdrawing, this lower tide, if you will, right, connects with sadness. And it's eternal. Eternal note of sadness in. Okay, that's something to really think about with that. Okay, it's always there, never goes away. Then he shifts to Sophocles. Don't get Sophocles mixed up with Socrates, two different people. Okay, Sophocles, of course, wrote some of the great Greek tragedies that we still have with us, including Oedipus Rex, but also, in this case, importantly, Antigone, right? Which is sort of a sequel to Oedipus Rex. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean. The Aegean is the sea, right, the part of the Mediterranean that's out there in Greece, ancient Greece especially. We talk about the Aegean Sea. And it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. Okay. Again, this notion of misery, sadness, as if you pardon the pun here, the undercurrent of everything that's happening. It's always there, again, somewhere at its base. We also find in the sound of thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. Okay, so England is obviously much further north than Greece, right? So you go from the Aegean to the northern sea, which is the sea around England. Okay. But notice the emphasis at line 19 on the word thought. Again, it kind of stops with a comma, right? So it pauses us to think, what is that thought? Next stanza. The sea of faith was once two at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. The sea of faith. The whole idea, if you will, that maybe and I know it's an oversimplification, but maybe essentially the world, i.e. Western Europe, was united in faith. Christianity in particular, of course, Arnold is referring to. There was a time when Christianity, religion, dictated everything, and that's now gone. So whatever comfort was found in that is slowly disappearing. Again, in the 19th century, and I think one of the themes of this course, the 216 course, as we move from Blake all the way to the present, has to do with the decline of religion as a unifying, driving force in people's lives. It's not to say that religion stops existing. Of course, it doesn't stop existing, right? But it's no longer that unifying force. Okay, it's been questioned. It's been fragmented into different. And of course, the rise of certain ideas and thoughts tend also to push religion out of the central part of life, right? And make it something elsewhere. So, you no longer believe that the earth is, 10,000 years old and there was Adam and Eve at the Garden of Eden, which was a literal place and literal people who literally had kids who, I don't know how they procreated all the way into being all the people in the world, because after all, Cain did kill Abel, then they had a boy again, Seth, but I mean, what the hell is he doing? Who's he having sex with? I don't know. Never mind. It's all gone. It's all gone as a unifying force in the world that Arnold knows. But now I only hear its melancholy, long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges, drear and naked shingles of the world. Ah, love, let us be true to one another, for the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new. And, of course, whenever you see the word seems, right, which is there at the end of line 30, seems is very different from the word is, right? Something is something. There's like an equal sign there. Something seems to be something that also suggests it may not fully be so. And he turns the key right here, right? Hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. It's all an illusion. This idea that love will make everything better, romantic love in this case. Doesn't change a damn thing in the world. Right, look at that. What are those lines 13 and 14? Devastating lines. Love doesn't do these things for real. And we are here as on a darkling plain, a plain where there's darkness, right, where the sun has gone down and you can no longer see. Swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. You're fighting and you don't even know who you're fighting. Now, one of the things I dislike, and this happens a lot, is the footnote by the editors to place this ignorant armies reference to a very specific battle. I think it's totally irrelevant. This is not about one time or one place. This is about the human condition. And Arnold is positing here that the human condition is this one in which we are fighting without knowing. We are struggling without a plan. It's a very depressing thought, okay? Where ignorant armies clash by night. You don't even know who you're fighting. You might even be fighting your own people. You can't get around at night, right? It's all darkness. Confused alarms of struggle and flight. This is a very pessimistic poem. I hope you enjoyed it.